What's up everyone, my name is Joe and welcome back to Film Focused. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to properly prep your film scans and digital images for print. Printing is one of the most important skill sets to have when it comes to being a photographer. Photography, at its core and its foundation, is a print media. It's meant to be held in your hands, seen in person. Images are supposed to be printed. They're not supposed to just be consumed and viewed on a screen. So before I get too into it and carried away, let's jump into the video. I'll show you guys how to properly prep your images and your film scans, and then I'll show you some examples of my work at the end of the video. Alright, so here I've opened my file in Photoshop. You can see all of my adjustments and edits are already done. Yours should be as well. Friendly reminder number one, this video is about prepping your images for print, not about editing your images, so all of your edits should already be done. Friendly reminder number two, if you are new to printing or just aren't that experienced, your prints will most likely come out slightly darker than how you see them on your screen. That's because your screen is backlit, or your monitor is backlit, and inkjet prints, which are 99% of the prints you'll be making, is just ink and paper. So you don't have the same luminance that you get from a computer screen. So if you're worried about your blacks and the shadow details getting lost and your prints being too dark, or if you've already made a test print and the print is too dark, a really easy way to work around that is by making a levels adjustment. So we're going to select the little icon that looks like a histogram. We're not going to do anything in here, but we're going to pay attention to this little gradient bar down here and your output levels. I'd recommend making your black point somewhere around 5 or maybe 10. And you can even see on the screen here how much of a difference that makes. So it might not look ideal in terms of the digital image you're seeing on your computer, but that will help your image print better if you have a dark image or if you have a dark print. Just some food for thought. So I'm going to delete this now, and we're going to move forward into the 4 steps that I use whenever I'm prepping my images for print. That is flattening your image, resizing your image, sharpening your image, and then converting the color profile to an appropriate color profile. So we're going to start by going up to Layer, dropping down to Flatten Image, and in a few seconds all of your adjustments will merge in with the base layer of the image, and you'll be left with just a background layer. That's all you need. From here, we're going to resize your image, so go up to Image, and then Image Size. This can get a little confusing, but I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. You have your image size, which is just your file size. You have your dimensions, which are the dimensions in pixels of your image. You have your height and width and your resolution, and then lastly, your resample options here. So to start, this is all you have to do. Deselect the resample option. Put in your height or your width, and Photoshop will finish that equation for you. I'm in a 4:5 ratio, so I'm making a 16:20 print. I type in 20 and Photoshop already puts in the 16 for the width. Do not change your resolution yet. You can see how it's linked to your height and your width. Don't touch your resolution until you re-click the resample checkbox. Now the resolution is no longer linked to your height and your width, and you can change this at will. So 300 is that's the tried and true resolution for printing. If you have a number that's larger than 300, you're not really gaining anything. You want to keep your resolution as close to 300 as possible. If I was making a larger print, my resolution would most likely be lower, and if it's some arbitrary number like 356, drop that down to 300. Let's say it was at 256. Drop that resolution down to 250, or maybe even just 200. That's going to give you the best possible results when it comes to your printer reading the file and making an accurate print of the file. So don't mess around with weird numbers. Keep them as simple as possible. All right, so now we're going to check our resampling options. You can see now, since we've resized and changed the resolution for this image, the image size is almost half, and the pixels have also shrunk as well, or the size of the pixels, the number of pixels. So we're going to select this option which says bicubic sharper, which is best for reduction. If I was making a bigger print and I had a really low resolution file, I would pick bicubic smoother or bicubic for smooth gradients. But because we're reducing the actual size of the image, we are going to pick bicubic sharper. So just to reiterate, you deselect resample, change your height and width, reselect resample, then change your resolution. If you're making a smaller print, reduction. If you're making a bigger print, enlargement. Simple as that. Click OK. You can see that the file actually shrunk on the screen. And if your computer screen is actually calibrated properly, mine is, I can go into print size and you will see that this is exactly 16 inches by 20 inches here. So that's a really nice feature of having your screen calibrated properly. You can see exactly how big your prints will be. This is good if you want to maybe adjust a few things. Maybe if I wanted to make this a few inches smaller, a few inches bigger, I can take care of that here and now, which is really, really nice. So let's move on to sharpening. The image is the right size. We need to make sure that it's nice and sharp for print. So what we're going to do is select Filter, Sharpen, and Unsharp Mask. This is another slightly tricky thing to take care of, but it's another very simple thing. The more you use it, the easier it gets. Very simply, the amount is just the percentage of sharpness. It goes from 1 all the way to 500. 500 is way too much. 1 probably isn't enough. The sweet spot that I have found is in between 100 and 200. This file prints really well right around the 130 mark, so I'm going to keep it there. For your radius, that's simply selecting how wide each kind of single bit of sharpening will be put into effect. So if it's at 1, it will be 1 full pixel. If it's lower or larger, it will be larger or lower. So the sweet spot that I have found and what I was taught to use is either 0.8 or 1. For this file, I'm using 0.8. The threshold is really interesting. Threshold, if you select it at 0, basically what that means is this amount of sharpening on this radius is going to apply to the entire image no matter what. If we move this threshold to 12, 13, what's going to happen is the algorithm in this program is going to read this file and it's going to look for areas like this or this that have edge-to-edge detail and these contrasts between the pixels, and it's going to sharpen those areas. And then areas like this that have no real contrast, it's just out of focus, it will not apply sharpening to those areas. So it's really, really nice for an image that has a very shallow depth of field. It's good for portraits. It's good for this image in particular. So I'm going to keep the threshold right at 2, and that's really the sweet spot for me. Furthermore, this little window is whatever you kind of click on with this little square icon that now is your cursor. And additionally, this preview button not only works on this window, but it's your entire file that you're seeing. So if I go to 100% here and I make this some ridiculous edit, if I click preview, you can see the before and after. So a really, really handy preview button when you're doing your sharpness. So let me put those back and I'm going to click OK. Now the last thing we need to do is convert your color profile to an appropriate color profile. To do this, you go to Edit, drop down to Convert to Profile, and you'll see my profile that I'm currently using is ProPhoto RGB. That is the widest gamut of color that you can use for editing your files. I highly recommend, if you are serious about making your images look as good as possible, using ProPhoto RGB rather than Adobe. Adobe is a good color space, but it's not as wide as ProPhoto. Additionally, if you're editing in sRGB, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. It's a very small color profile that is not good for editing. However, the entire World Wide Web uses sRGB, and 9 out of 10 printers also use sRGB. It's a very simple color space. It's very small. So to get the best results, you want to edit in ProPhoto, and then convert to sRGB before you go to print. Now, if you're working with a printer and they have a color profile specific to their printers and you can download that, you can then upload that color profile into Photoshop and use that while you're editing, so you know that what you're seeing on the screen is exactly how it's going to print. Very, very useful, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go to sRGB. For your conversion options, stick with Adobe. For these options here, these all do very similar, but still different things when it comes to rendering the color and luminance of your image. Relative colorimetric does a great job. I don't use any of these other options. However, there are good articles online that will go into detail about how these differ. If you're interested in that, I would do the research on your own. But for me, relative colorimetric does just a fine job, and same thing with black point compensation, doesn't bother me at all. So I'm going to click OK, and now your file is ready to save and print. Go ahead and click File, Save As a JPEG, PNG, a TIFF file, whatever your heart desires. Make sure that you do Save As and not Save. You do not want to save over your original master file or your Photoshop file that has all of your edits and layers still available to work on later if you need to make adjustments after this print comes back. So make sure that you're making a new file and you're not just saving over your Photoshop file. That is not good to do. But other than that, that's all you need. You have now flattened your image, you've resized it, you've sharpened it, and you've made it into the correct color profile. So now your image will look great wherever you choose to print it. All right, I hope all that made sense and you enjoyed the video. As promised, here is the final print from that file. I'm really, really happy with it. I know that it's probably not looking too great on camera. I'm sure that I'm showing some B-roll of it hanging on the wall at the moment, alongside some other prints that I've made using the same method. Like I said, I hope this really helps. It's a very simple way to manage all of your photos and get them ready to print, and I hope you really enjoy printing your images and seeing them come back from the print lab and being able to hold them in your hands and share with your friends and family and maybe even sell some of your own. Printing is really, really important, and it's also one of the most satisfying parts of being a photographer. So I hope you guys can enjoy in the process just like I have for the past, 10 or 12 years now. With all that said and done, I want to say a quick thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers who have come to the channel between my last video and this one. I've been in a little bit of a drought, but I'm really happy to be back and excited to make a lot more videos in the near future. And then I also want to extend an even bigger thank you to all the subscribers who have stuck with me through this time. I haven't been posting nearly as much as I would like to, and I plan on posting a lot more in the future. So thank you guys, and welcome to all of you who are new. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below in the comment section, and I will get back to every single one that I can. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, leave any comments if you have any questions or anything like that. Thank you again for stopping by and checking out the video. Good luck printing, happy shooting, and I'll see you guys in the next video.